the best way to explain that now, because you're putting some money aside, what are we looking to buy? Because I've talked about this recently a lot on my channel, where the American dream, because you mentioned this, the traditional American dream was being able to buy a home, pay it off, and now you own a home. The reason why this was the American dream for anywhere in the world is because when you pay down your home, what are you building in your home? Equity. It's this concept of equity. And we assume, or we, for lack of better, we don't have the financial education to know that that equity, which we think is going to make generational wealth, because equity is where real wealth is built, can only be found in the home that we live in. But that's not true. And this is where so many people get things wrong, because they now stretch themselves too thin. They do risky things, take out adjustable rate mortgages, use too much debt to buy a home because they think that it's an investment that's going to make them wealthy, because now you can pay it down, build equity, and have something to pass down. However, there are many other ways to build equity, to build real wealth that you can then pass down. This goes back into the assets that we talked about, right? When you invest your money into stocks, you are building equity in these companies. When you go and invest in real estate as an investment, not where you live in yourself as a rental property, you're building equity in your real estate portfolio. And this is different than your home, because when you buy a rental property, you're buying it for one purpose. You're buying it for the purpose of making money. You buy a home for the purpose of making memories. So if you're buying something for the purpose of making money, you're probably going to make more money, because you're going to do a different type of analysis than in the home that you live in. And one way is you can go and actually buy it. And the second way, like you've been talking about entrepreneurship, is you can build the equity. So when you build a company, you're building equity in the company. Like if you go and start a company, you are the 100% owner of the company. Well, if your company can make $100,000 of profit a year, your equity might be worth $200,000, $500,000, $1 million, depending on whatever type of company it is. But you're building equity in a company. So you can build this equity, you can buy this equity. And the whole idea of a recession is now this type of equity, these investments, these assets can go on sale. And this is where now you can come in and buy more equity at a discounted price. And this is one of those things. I'm gonna go back to, we keep mentioning what we talked about before in a previous interview. We're never taught this, because school teaches us to become an employee. What do you do when you're an employee? You get a salary. Do you get any equity with a salary? No. Maybe your company gives you separate equity as a compensation package or something, but your salary is payment for hours that you work. And that is nice today, but once you spend your salary, you have nothing left. Real wealth in this country, in this system, is built through owning equity. We're never taught this. This is what gets me really heated up, because we're never taught about this. And so if our whole system is taught around building and earning a salary, how come we're never taught about building equity? Because now what we should be teaching is, hey, go to school, get educated, but understand that wealth is built through equity. So earn a salary doing whatever you want, whether you're a doctor or you're working at a factory, doesn't matter. Take some of your salary, go out and build some equity. We're always taught and think and told that the way you do that is to follow the American dream of just buying a home, because now you can pay down your home, build some equity. But that is honestly one of the worst ways to build equity. You never talk about wealthy people becoming the richest people or wealthy people because I paid off my home. No, you become wealthy because you own a company, you built a company, you invested in stocks, you invested in real estate, you invested in equity somewhere else, and your home is honestly like one of the last things that wealthy people think about. Yet for the majority of people, when they think about becoming wealthy and building this type of generational wealth, what are they thinking about? Buying and paying off my home. And there's so much more to that, but it requires that financial education.
Yeah. I want to go back to something we were talking about earlier, debt, covenants. So you were talking about at the time that there's two kinds of selling. There's selling because you choose to, but oftentimes people are doing it out of panic, and then there's selling because you're forced to. In business, when you're taking out a loan, they put covenants on it, meaning the following things must be true for you to have a loan in good standing. So even if you're making your payments, if the ratio of like your accounts receivable, so the amount of money that you know that you have coming in, if it drops below a certain level, if that's one of the covenants, or you have to have a certain amount of savings in the bank, or your profit margin has to be 13% or higher, whatever. They put these covenants
Right.
on that. That's what's happening when somebody is getting overextended with either...
Sort of. So if we talk about real estate first, when you go, now there's a couple of different levels of real estate investing and loans, assuming you're buying with debt now. In the beginner level, they're going to look at your income very heavily. Your income to debt ratio, just like when you go and buy a home, they're going to look at all the things, same things to go and buy a rental property. Then as you get a little bit bigger, they're not even going to really care about your personal financial situation. What they're going to be looking at is primarily, just like you were saying, the actual investment itself. Because now you're buying essentially a business. If you're buying an apartment complex, well, now you're buying essentially a business, and then what they want to see is, okay, what's the price of this? How much rent are you generating every month, every year? What are your expenses? What is the margin? Because they know that this property is going to continue to generate rental income, and the rental income is going to then pay for the mortgage, the loan on the building. And so that's what they're looking at. And of course, they're going to want to see your personal financial situation, because they want to see, okay, if things go bad, what can you do? Do you have any access to excess cash? Do you have any other access to capital? Do you have any other wealth? Do you have any other experience? But the primary thing as you get bigger and bigger is just going to be the property itself. In the stock market, oh man.
Well, let's stay on property for a second.
Sure.
So are they going to call the loan? Like, there will be a predefined set of things, I imagine, that if they stop being true, they'll call the loan. So for instance, as long as you have 20% equity in the building, we're fine. But the second the value of the property drops, like if you put out, let's say, $5 million to buy it, if the property ceases to be worth $5 million, then we're going to basically call it, because I know that's what ends up happening to somebody in the crypto market.
Yeah, it doesn't
If your
work like
crypto
that.
is worth $1 million and you've got $1 million borrowed, the second that that's worth $1 million, they're going to do a margin call.
Sure.
Because now it's like, if it goes down any more, then they're out money. So they literally, the second it drops to the amount that you owe, boom, it's gone.
It works similar to that in the stock market, but in the real estate market, no. They're not paying attention to the valuation of the property day to day, because that's also kind of ambiguous. A property is worth really what someone's willing to pay for it. You can run an appraisal, you can do comps, but at the end of the day, it's what someone else is willing to pay for it. So instead of them looking at the valuation of the property or what they think it's worth, what they're looking at is, are you making the payments? Because if you're making the payments, they're not going to ask you questions. If you stop making payments, that's when they start asking questions, and that's when they start trying to figure out what to do, and then they might force you to sell. Now, forcing you to sell in crypto is very different than forcing you to sell in real estate. If you're enjoying this video and want to take your investing to the next level, I want to remind you that I put together a free investing masterclass where I walk you through how you can get started as an investor and find hidden investment opportunities before everybody else. It's a completely free masterclass, and when you register, you'll also get access to Market Briefs, which is my newsletter for investors, completely free, complimentary as a bonus. So if you want to get the investing masterclass and Market Briefs all for free, all you have to do is click the link down in the description below to get it. Because forcing you to sell in real estate is not going to depend state to state, what the foreclosure process looks like, how intense that process is, and how long that process is. Versus in crypto, from my understanding, is it can be pretty instant. You get that margin call, they can take your crypto back pretty quickly. Real estate, it can be a year, and then there's a lot of different tools that can be done. Like in the 2008 real estate crash, one thing that was very popular was a short sale. This is separate from a foreclosure. A short sale is now where there's three parties working together. The seller, the bank, and the buyer are working to now come to an agreement on a price where the bank agrees, hey, we're going to lose money in this deal. We're willing to lose X amount of money on this deal. The seller says, yeah, I'm going to walk away from this deal and not make any money, but at least I don't get foreclosed on. And the buyer says, fine, I'll pay this money. I was involved in multiple short sales, and one of the short sales that I was involved in, they also had an additional provision where, okay, the bank's going to agree to lose however much money. I don't remember the exact numbers. The seller agreed to walk away and not get a penny from the home. And then they also wanted me to write a separate check at closing to the seller's contractor, because he had done some work on the property, never got paid, and had put a lien on the property, meaning he essentially made a claim against the seller backed by the value of the home that, hey, I need to get paid. So I then had to also work out a deal with the contractor where all these parties, where the contractor had to agree to a certain amount of money. This was a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact numbers. But so it was two separate checks that had to go. One was to the contractor to make him happy and whole, and then one was to the bank, where the bank now was okay with losing a certain amount of money. And they're willing to do this, the bank, in that situation, because if they had gone through foreclosure, they would have to spend way more money on legal fees. They'd have to spend way more money on administrative fees, and then they'd probably even sell the home for less money when it came to the actual foreclosure process. And the seller would prefer a short sale in this situation, because if you don't do a short sale and you go into foreclosure, then your credit score gets hit. You have to go through the entire foreclosure proceeds. So
you don't take a hit if you do a short sale?
If you do it right, you typically don't have to get the same sort of credit score hit because you're just selling the home versus a foreclosure. I mean, so there are, again, the reason why I said you have to do it right, because there's provisions, there's certain contracts that you want to make with the lender saying that they're not going to come after you for the previous money, and they're not going to file some other things. So there's specific contracts. So it gets very complex where you want to make sure you have a good attorney, because it could affect your credit score, and it could also not affect your credit score as much, depending on how good your representation is and how well you draft these agreements. So it becomes very complex versus, we talk about with crypto or with the stock market. If the value of your investments fall to a certain amount and you don't put in a certain amount of money, it just sells. There's nothing else. Like they're either going to say, give us $10,000 right now, or we're going to sell your investments for you. And there's really no other if, ands, or buts. It's like almost automated in that sense. So it's a very different situation.
How do people get into the stock market with debt?
It's actually very simple. Most brokerages make their money through margin, meaning debt. Because if we backtrack.
So you're saying if I go somewhere like Vanguard, I can buy on debt?
So let's talk more about the mainstream, like Robinhoods and the more of the mainstream brokerages in that sense. Where
Robinhood now is mainstream, huh?
They're pretty mainstream.
How long have they been around for?
Ooh, I don't know the exact number of years.
It's not that long, right?
They're one of those startup brokerages. I don't know what year they started.
Wow.
Well, let's start about 100 years ago, and then we'll kind of take this little time lapse. 100 years ago, if you wanted to buy
just a couple days back.
If you wanted to buy stocks a long time ago, you would have to have access to an actual stockbroker. You would probably have a financial advisor. It'd be a very difficult process and a very long process where if you wanted to buy a stock, you would call somebody who would call somebody who would then make a transaction, maybe multiple people to make the transaction. So it was a very long process. Then in the early 2000s, started coming these digital brokerages. This is where Charles Schwab, E-Trade, TD Ameritrade, they really became bigger. But the way that they would make money was they would charge you a fee, a commission to make a trade. So it was somewhere between $5, $7 to $15 to even $20 to make one transaction, to buy a stock or sell a stock. Then after the 2010s came things like Robinhood. And Robinhood then shook things up even more, where they said, we're a commission-free brokerage. You can come trade stocks on our platform, and we're not going to charge you a single trading fee. Now, if you're not charging a fee, how are you going to make money? Well, the first way that they made money was this whole concept of you would buy a stock on Robinhood, and then Robinhood would then make that transaction a little bit later, and they would sell these trades. It was a very complex process where they would sell it to another entity. So you were kind of doing an indirect trade. For you as the trader, it made no difference, or negligible difference. You wouldn't even know the difference. Versus Robinhood is then selling these trades on the back end. But then the second way that they would make money is through margin, meaning that Robinhood and these platforms would then lend you money based off of how much money you have in the platform, and then you can trade not just with the $100 that you have in your Robinhood account, but now with the extra $20, $50, maybe $100 that Robinhood is giving you, that you can now trade on margin. And the amount of money they're going to give you is going to depend on a number of different factors. But then they literally will just extend you this line of credit, and now you can trade. And I know this from firsthand experience, not with Robinhood, but with a different brokerage, because when I first got started, and we talked about with trading, this was when I forget if it was my first year in college. I spent a summer doing trading, and I was using a platform, and they told me that, hey, I started trading, and then they said, let's upgrade your account to a trader's account. And I said, okay, cool. And then they said, hey, we will also give you more money to trade with, margin. I didn't, now this shows you how naive I was with the lack of financial education that I had. I thought it was free money. I didn't know that this money had strings attached to it. I didn't know how to pay the money back. I didn't know that I was being charged interest. So what happened was I traded money.
Now, I don't know if you've heard, there's a guy named Jaspreet Singh, and he says the most expensive money is free money.
It's free money. I learned that lesson in a very painful way. So I was trading money with the brokerage's account, where I just thought that because now I'm making more trades, that they're going to make more commissions, that there's going to, that's how they made their money. Well, long story short, I had lost money on some of these trades that were on margin. And they said, hey, you need to put more money in the account. I was like, what do you mean? Okay, I got to make up this whatever margin. So then I had fortunately some money. I covered it, and then I decided I'm no longer going to be a trader. I'm done with this.
So we loaned you money to make the trade. You lost. Pay us back.
I paid that money back. So now
how
I'm
long
done.
did they give you to pay back?
I don't remember. I paid it. I had the money, so I just paid it because I understood that I had lost their money. So that part made sense to me. And then I was done trading. I realized that this is not for me. I don't want to spend this time.
What do they do if you can't pay it back?
Well, I don't know exactly what they do, but they're going to come after you. I'm sure they will file a lawsuit. I'm thinking about this. I'm an attorney, right? From a legal perspective, it depends on how much money you owe and what you're going to be doing. Because now they can very easily file a claim against you. They can run a lawsuit against you if you're not paying. There's a lot of different things they can do. And the more dollars that you owe, there's the more things that they can do, just like with anything else. But then, I'm done trading. And then a number of months go by, and I start seeing this like deductions from my account. I'm like, what am I being charged for? So I call them up, and they're like, it's your margin. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not doing anything. Well, we gave you money. It's in your account. You have to pay interest on the money that we gave you. And that's when I realized there's a cost to money, right? And so that's when I said, turn this off, take your money back. I don't want this. I paid interest on it, and that was the last time that I did that. But this is, I was, 18 years old, 17, 18. I had no idea, probably 18. I had no idea what I was doing. And this is where a lot of people get in trouble, because you think, oh, I can double my money pretty quickly. But if I use their money in addition to my money, now I can quadruple my money. Because I only got to pay you a little bit of percentage if you know that you got to pay them back.
So I don't know a lot about Robinhood. I am super stoked that the average person can now get into the equities market. But that's how people get into trouble when they're using
It's the
debt.
financial education, along with everything else. Accessibility is great, but the accessibility without financial education can be dangerous now if you start using these tools, because if you don't know the cost of some of these tools, it can be very bad. For example, think of a credit card. Is a credit card a bad thing or a good thing? It depends who you ask.
Right.
There are so many people have thousands of dollars worth of credit card debt that is skinning them alive.
Yep.
I only transact with the credit card. Why?
Because
I get my points, I get my cash back, I get my fraud protection, I get free insurance on my car rentals, I get all these things that I wouldn't get if I paid with cash. Even if I debit card, I don't get all these things. So now when I spend a lot of money, especially in my business. If I spend $100,000 a year or $500,000 a year, I'm gonna get a big cash back check that I can put right back into the business. I can spend it, I can use it on a vacation, I can get free perks. I mean, I get so many different things, but that's only because I know I'm not going to change my spending because of my medium. I'm not changing my spending because I have a credit card. I'm just using a credit card to facilitate my transactions as opposed to using it as a free money printer. Right. And again, what is it? It's that financial education along with the tool. It's not the tool that's inherently evil. It's when you use a tool without that financial education that now you can get screwed over, that you get in trouble, that you start hating the system. Oh, they're out to get you. They're not giving you the financial education because it's not in their best interest to give you that financial education. But this is where if you have the financial education, you can use the system to your advantage. But the problem is we are never taught this, right? And it's just like, for me, it pulls on these strings in my brain because it's like, Oh my God, it just screws so many people over because it's profitable to keep people poor. If you don't understand this, you're going to spend more money on your credit card. You're going to spend all your money making everybody else
That's a
look
terrifying
rich.
statement that you just rushed past. It's profitable to keep people poor.
It is profitable to keep people poor.
Is it profitable to keep them poor or to keep them ignorant?
It's a mix of both. When you're ignorant, you stay poor.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand. Because if you don't have that financial education, what are you going to do? You're going to go spend your money at Gucci, Louis Vuitton. You're going to be buying that extra guac because, hey, you got that money. Then how are you going to buy it? You're going to buy it.
That extra
You're going to buy the extra guac lifestyle. You're going to buy it with your credit card. And you're not going to wait until you can afford it. You're going to buy it now because you can. And nowadays, it's not just a credit card. It's buy now, pay later. And everybody talks about how buy now, pay later is 0% APR. There's no cost to this money. You can buy it now, pay later. But again, like you said, what I said, the most expensive kind of money is free money. They got to make money somehow. There's a reason why there's billions of dollars pouring into the buy now, pay later industry, one of the fastest growing fintech industries ever, because when you spend on buy now, pay later, what happens? One, you're spending way more money than you would have if you didn't buy now, pay later, because if you wanted to buy $1,000 sofa, you have to have $1,000 in your pocket. Well, now you can buy it now and pay it later. So now you can spend $1,000 on something else. Second, what happens to so many people is you don't pay it off in time. Now, when you don't pay it off in time, it's no longer 0% APR. Now you get slapped with a very hefty, very expensive fine. So now it's, okay, the tool plus the education, going back to inflation. Inflation, is it a good thing or bad thing? I think you asked me that last time, or are you talking about, the way the system works? Again, it just depends. Depends on if you understand it or not. If for wealthy people, they love the inflation. Hey, keep paying more for my assets. Keep driving up the value of my assets. Keep making me wealthier. Versus for the average person, you keep getting screwed over because now your groceries are more expensive, your gas is more expensive, your rent is more expensive, everything is more expensive. Everything, it's understanding the tool and the education. The tool, I'm going to give one more example because this is the stuff you can see. It keeps me up at night. It gets me really upset because I understand both sides, because I never had that financial education, and now I see the benefit of it, and I'm like, please learn this. Even if there's a clickbaity title, because I need you to watch it, please learn this. We talk about, how the government many times, they might have good intentions, but the people in government aren't economists. They're not always the best decisions with their money, because sometimes their goal might just be to create jobs, and creating jobs is different than being efficient. And so, if you look at, for example, the college education system, where back in the day, it was not easy to get a student loan. And back then, college was also a lot cheaper. And back then, a lot of people were not getting a college degree. So if you had a college degree, what happened? You stuck out. You were different. You had something. Well, what happened later, I think this was in the 70s now, the United States government, maybe the 70s, 80s, around that time, the United States government passed a law that said that if you want a student loan, we'll guarantee it. Anybody can get access to college education. The government will guarantee a student loan. Now, this sounds like great news. Hey, everybody can get educated. Yeah. How can that be bad? But colleges heard this, and it was music to their ears. You're telling me that I can charge any amount that I want, and the government is going to guarantee to give that to our students? Sign me up. Now we can hike up our tuition rates, and people keep paying. Now everybody can go to college because we think that we need to go to college in order to become successful. And now where we are today, everybody has a college degree. If you go and apply for a job with a college degree, you don't stick out. You're just like everybody else.